I first met my husband, Mark, at a friend's party. He had a warm smile and a genuine charm that immediately drew me to him. We started talking, and as the night progressed, it felt like we were the only two people in the room. We connected on so many levels, and by the end of the night, I knew there was something special between us. A whirlwind romance followed, filled with exciting dates, heartfelt conversations, and plenty of laughter. We were inseparable, and it didn't take long for us to realize that we wanted to spend the rest of our lives together. After a few months, Mark proposed to me on a beautiful beach at sunset. It was a picture-perfect moment. And of course, I said yes without any hesitation. We were ecstatic and eager to start our new life together. However, there was one small hurdle we needed to overcome before we could find our own place: a lack of finances. Mark suggested that we move in with his parents temporarily to save up for a down payment on our dream home. I agreed, thinking it would be a great opportunity to bond with his family and build a stronger foundation for our marriage. Mark's parents, Robert and Linda, were welcoming and kind-hearted. They opened their home to us with open arms, and for a while, it felt like a cozy, harmonious environment. They seemed genuinely happy to have us there, and I genuinely believed it was the best decision for us at the time. In those early days, I got to know Robert and Linda better. Robert was a gentle and laid-back man, always ready with a warm smile and a helping hand. He had an infectious laugh that could light up a room. Linda, on the other hand, was a strong-willed woman, fiercely protective of her family. She had a sharp wit and an unwavering loyalty to those she loved. As we settled into their home, I felt grateful for the support and assistance they provided. Mark and I were optimistic about our future, and even though he hadn't found a job yet, we believed it would only be a temporary setback. We were young, in love, and ready to face any challenge that came our way. Moving into Mark's parents' house was a significant change for both of us. We brought our belongings, hopes, and dreams into their home, ready to start this new chapter in our lives. At first, the living arrangement seemed promising. The house was spacious, and we had our own private space within it. As days turned into weeks, we settled into a routine. I commuted to work every day while Mark continued his job search. His determination and enthusiasm never wavered, and I admired him for that. Meanwhile, his parents took care of the household chores and made sure there was always a warm meal waiting for us. In those early days, we bonded as a family. We shared meals together, exchanged stories, and even embarked on small adventures. Mark's father, Robert, often took us hiking on weekends while Linda would surprise us with her delicious homemade desserts. Life felt comfortable and full of promise. However, as time went on, we started to notice a shift in dynamics. Mark struggled to find employment despite his relentless efforts. His confidence began to wane, and it took a toll on him emotionally. I watched helplessly as he sent out job applications day after day, hoping for a breakthrough. Meanwhile, I continued to work full-time to support us all. My income became the primary source of sustenance for the entire household. Bills, groceries, and everyday expenses became my responsibility. It was a heavy burden to bear. But I believed that things would eventually change for the better. As the financial strain grew, Mark's parents became less involved in contributing to the household. They seemed to distance themselves from the responsibilities, leaving me to shoulder the load entirely. Linda, once so warm and affectionate, became increasingly preoccupied with her own concerns. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day at work, I returned home to find Mark and his parents sitting in the living room. Their faces were grim, and a heavy silence hung in the air. Sensing something was wrong, I cautiously approached them. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice filled with concern. Mark's mother, Linda, sighed deeply before speaking. "Susan, we need to talk," she said, her tone somber. "We've been discussing the financial situation, and we've decided that you need to contribute more. It's becoming a burden for us, too." I was taken aback by her words. I had been giving my all, working tirelessly to provide for everyone. How could they not see the effort I was putting in? "But I've been doing everything I can," I replied, my voice tinged with frustration. "I'm already working long hours and giving my entire paycheck. Robert, Mark's father, interjected with a softer tone. "We understand that, Susan, but we're all struggling. We thought this arrangement would be temporary, but it's taking longer than expected for Mark to find work." Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized the magnitude of the situation. It was clear that the support I had hoped for from Mark's family was slowly slipping away. As days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months, it became increasingly evident that Mark's job search was hitting a dead end. Despite his persistent efforts and countless job applications, he couldn't secure stable employment. It was a harsh reality to face, and it left him feeling defeated and discouraged. Meanwhile, the financial burden continued to weigh heavily on my shoulders. I was the sole breadwinner for our little family, and it felt like an immense responsibility. My hard-earned money became the lifeline that kept us afloat. I paid the bills, put food on the table, and tried my best to meet everyone's needs. Mark's parents, Robert and Linda, were aware of the situation. They initially tried to lend a helping hand, but their contributions became less and less frequent as time went on. The strain on our relationship started to show, and I couldn't help but feel like I was being taken advantage of. One evening, after returning home from another exhausting day at work, I found Mark and his parents gathered in the living room. The atmosphere was tense, and I could sense that something was amiss. "What's going on?" I asked, a hint of apprehension in my voice. Linda, Mark's mother, looked at me with a mix of frustration and disappointment. "Susan, we need to talk," she began, her tone laced with frustration. "We can't keep relying solely on you to provide for all of us. It's not fair." I felt a surge of anger rise within me. I had poured my heart and soul into supporting the entire household, and to be met with this kind of complaint felt like a slap in the face. "I've been doing everything I can," I retorted, my voice tinged with frustration. "I'm working long hours, sacrificing my own needs, and giving my entire paycheck. How much more do you expect me to do?" Robert, Mark's father, interjected with a softer tone, trying to calm the situation. "Susan, we understand your efforts, but the reality is that we're all struggling. We thought Mark would find work soon, but it's taking longer than we anticipated." I felt a lump forming in my throat as I realized that my hope of receiving support from Mark's family was slipping away. The realization hit me hard. I was alone in this battle. Taking a deep breath, I gathered my courage and looked at them with determination. "I can't continue like this," I said firmly. "I've been providing for everyone, sacrificing my own well-being, and it's become too much. I deserve to be treated with respect and fairness." Linda's expression hardened as she responded sharply. "Well, no one asked you to do it all. If you can't handle it, maybe you should reconsider your place in this family." The words stung, and the weight of their indifference became unbearable. It was at that moment that I realized I couldn't keep living like this. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, the weight of providing for the entire household fell squarely on my shoulders. I worked tirelessly, pouring my energy and effort into supporting Mark, his parents, and myself. But as time went on, I started to notice a disturbing pattern. The support I once relied upon was slowly fading away. I watched as Linda, who had once been warm and nurturing, grew more preoccupied with her own concerns. She seemed detached and distant, leaving me to navigate the challenges on my own. The bond we once shared began to fray, and I felt a growing sense of isolation within the walls of their home. Conversations about the financial situation became increasingly strained. I would bring up the need for everyone to contribute and share the responsibility, but my concerns were met with dismissive remarks or empty promises. One evening, as tensions reached a boiling point, I mustered the courage to confront Mark and his parents. I found them in the living room, their faces etched with weariness. "We need to address this," I said, my voice firm but tinged with desperation. "I can't continue to be the sole provider while everyone else sits idly by." Mark looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and frustration. "I've been trying, Susan," he pleaded. "I've applied to countless jobs, but nothing seems to work out. I feel helpless." I took a deep breath, struggling to hold back my tears. "I understand that, Mark, but we can't keep going like this. We need to find a solution, together." Robert, Mark's father, chimed in, his voice weary. "We know it's been tough on you, Susan. We never wanted it to come to this, but things haven't worked out as we hoped. But that doesn't mean you can simply abandon me," I replied. My voice shaking with a mixture of anger and hurt. I thought we were a family, that we would support each other through thick and thin. But it feels like I'm the only one fighting for our well-being. Linda's face hardened as she interjected, her tone laced with resentment. "Well, maybe you're right. Maybe you don't belong here if you can't handle the pressure. The words pierced through me like a knife. I realized then that I couldn't continue in this toxic environment. The people I had once trusted and leaned on had turned their backs on me. After enduring the dwindling support and growing isolation in Mark's parents' home, I reached a breaking point. I couldn't bear the weight of providing for everyone while feeling unappreciated and disregarded. It was time to confront the situation head-on. One evening, as I returned home later than usual, due to an exhausting day at work, I braced myself for what awaited me. As I stepped through the front door, the tense atmosphere was palpable. Mark's mother, Linda, stood there, a storm brewing in her eyes. "Where have you been?" Linda snapped, her voice laced with anger. "And where's the money?" Startled by her aggression, I took a step back. Trying to gather my thoughts. "I've been working, Linda," I replied, my voice steady but firm. "I've been working long hours to provide for all of us." Linda's face contorted with frustration. "Well, it's not enough. We need more, and it's your responsibility to make it happen." A surge of indignation coursed through me. The audacity of their demands was overwhelming. I had given everything I had, sacrificing my own well-being, and it still wasn't enough for them. "I can't believe you're so brazen," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. "I've been providing for this family while receiving little to no support in return. It's unfair, and I won't tolerate it any longer." Linda's eyes blazed with fury. "No one asked you to do it all," she spat. "If you can't handle the responsibility, maybe you should leave." Mark stood nearby, silent and conflicted. I turned to him, tears welling up in my eyes, seeking solace and support. "Mark, don't you see what's happening?" I pleaded. "We're drowning, and I can't do this alone anymore. We need to find a way out." Mark hesitated, his gaze shifting between me and his mother. Finally, he spoke, his voice strained. I can't go against my family, Susan. They've always been there for me." The words hit me like a dagger to the heart. In that moment, I realized that Mark had chosen to align himself with his family, even if it meant sacrificing our marriage and the life we had envisioned together. With a heavy heart, I made a decision that would change the trajectory of my life. I packed up my belongings and left the house that had once held promise and love, now tainted by disappointment and broken dreams. It was time to find my own path. Leaving behind the suffocating atmosphere of Mark's parents' house was both liberating and terrifying. I rented a small apartment, a space that would become my sanctuary as I embarked on a new chapter of my life. It was a modest place, but it represented my newfound independence. As I settled into my own space, the weight of the past began to lift. I focused on finding stability and regaining control over my life. Determined to break free from the cycle of dependency, I poured my energy into securing a steady job and building a strong financial foundation. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. The resilience and determination that had guided me through the darkest times fueled my progress. I landed a job that provided stability and allowed me to support myself. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to stand on my own 2 feet. In the midst of rebuilding my life, I also took the necessary steps to legally separate from Mark. Our marriage had become a symbol of broken promises and unfulfilled dreams. With a heavy heart, I filed for divorce, knowing it was the right decision for my own well-being and future happiness. During this period, I focused on self-care and personal growth. I surrounded myself with supportive friends who understood the struggles I had faced and offered unwavering encouragement. Together, we embarked on adventures, explored new hobbies, and shared stories of resilience. Years passed, and I found myself in a place of strength and contentment. My career had flourished, and I had built a life that reflected my values and aspirations. I had also discovered a newfound love, a man who saw my worth and celebrated my independence. One day, as I walked through the streets, I happened to pass by Mark's old house. To my surprise, the once familiar walls stood empty, stripped of all furniture. A notice on the door revealed that the property had been confiscated due to non-payment of rent. It was a stark reminder of the consequences of their choices. Lost in my thoughts, I didn't notice the figure approaching until it was too late. It was Linda, my former mother-in-law. Our eyes met briefly, and I felt a mix of emotions bubbling within me. But I chose to keep silent and continue on my way, knowing that I had forged my own path and found happiness without their presence in my life. With each passing day, I grew stronger and more self-assured. My job had become a stable foundation, allowing me to stand tall and confident in the face of adversity. The divorce from Mark had been finalized, closing the chapter on a tumultuous period of my life. It was time to move on and embrace a future filled with promise and possibility. As I focused on building my own path, I couldn't help but reflect on the lessons I had learned. I had discovered the importance of self-reliance and the value of my own worth. No longer burdened by the expectations of others, I was free to pursue my dreams without compromise. One day, while strolling through a local park, I spotted a familiar face from afar. It was Mark, looking weary and worn. Our eyes met, and for a brief moment, time stood still. "Susan," he called out hesitantly, taking a few steps closer. "Mark," I replied, trying to maintain composure despite the surge of emotions. "I heard you're doing well," he said, his voice tinged with regret. "Yes, I am," I responded, my voice steady. "I found my own path, and I'm content with the life I've built." Mark sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I wish things had turned out differently," he admitted. "As do I replied softly. "But we can't change the past. What matters is how we grow from it." We stood in silence for a moment, both lost in our thoughts. It was a bittersweet encounter, a reminder of the love we once shared and the life that had unraveled before our eyes. "I hope you find happiness too, Mark," I said, mustering a genuine smile. Life has a funny way of giving us second chances. With that, I turned and walked away, feeling a sense of closure. The weight of the past no longer held me down. Instead, it propelled me forward. In the months that followed, I continued to thrive in my career, finding fulfillment in every challenge I tackled. And then, when I least expected it, love found me again. I met Richard, a kind and understanding man who saw the strength within me and cherished it. Our love blossomed, and we embarked on a journey together, supporting each other's dreams and aspirations. We built a life together based on trust, love, and mutual respect. Richard became my partner in every sense of the word, and with him by my side, I felt like I could conquer the world. As time passed, I occasionally crossed paths with Mark's family, but I no longer harbored any resentment. I had forgiven them and myself, recognizing that we were all products of our choices and circumstances.